A month ago, um, um, Trump insisted that the novel coronavirus was dying out in the U.S. as the pandemic overwhelmed huge swaths of the nation. Um, Trump maintained that the threat was fading away, which it isn't, and health officials across the nation begged him for more attention on the widening health crisis, and he wanted little to do with them. On Tuesday, the fake President Donald Trump flipped his script with the grim new assessment of the global pandemic, and at least applied an approach that aides implored him to take earlier in his pandemic response. Compared to previous disorderly spectacles that sometimes exceed 2 hours, Trump's appearance at a White House lectern on Tuesday hinted that significant changes are underway as he and his aides refocused their attention on the number one threat standing between them and a second term. The format of the briefing, a mostly scripted solo Trump also suggested a detente was reached among opposing White House factions that spent the past few weeks clashing over the role that their embattled boss should play in responding to the alarming resurgence of COVID-19 in southern and southwestern states. A senior administration official said that Trump's relatively disciplined performance was likely to neutralize objections that some aides had raised in recent days over allowing him to participate in the televised coronavirus updates. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, along with senior advisor Jared Kushner, dumbass Kushner anyway, and top officials on the fake president's re-election campaign had previously urged him to tether his election message to the economy and other issues instead of constantly dwelling on this deadly virus. Instead, after weeks of pressuring schools to commit to reopening and touting his plan to reboot the U.S. economy, Trump vowed on Tuesday to pursue a very powerful strategy to contain the virus and ensure rapid disruption of the first available vaccine. Despite some Trumpian flourishes, he repeatedly referred to it as the China virus and claimed other countries are begging the U.S. for assistance. The fake president managed to stick to the subject matter at hand, warning that the spike in cases will probably unfortunately get worse before it gets better. And he encouraged young Americans to avoid bars and wear protective masks when necessary, which he doesn't even do himself. It was a message even his strongest dumbass supporters were hoping to see after weeks of watching Trump dodge or downplay a threat that's consuming states critical to his re-election and just over 100 days away. Fake President Trump provided an important reality check about COVID-19, said Alfredo Ortiz, not really, who's the chief executive of the Jobs Creators Network and a member of the fake President's Latinos for Trump campaign coalition in a statement following the briefing. Trump's renewed participation in updates on the virus came as his administration grapples with the COVID-19 resurgence that has eroded months of progress and increased demands from state officials for a straightforward national strategy. Since Trump's last appearance at a briefing for the coronavirus task force in late April, confirmed cases of the deadly virus have increased nearly fourfold in the U.S., while deaths have surpassed 140,000. Initially, Trump had dismissed the alarming case spikes as the result of increased testing. As hospitalization rates ticked upward in numerous states earlier this month, he claimed during a July 4th speech that 99% of the COVID-19 infections rate are totally harmless, which he was wrong about for stating, in a statement that reeled some members of the administration's own task force and ran counter to scientific evidence suggesting more serious risks, but a shift in rhetoric among prominent Republicans, along with pressure from Vice President dumbass Mike Pence and top health officials, forced Trump and his inner circle to reevaluate their approach to the coronavirus messaging. According to Trump, he used a racist term. The China virus is a vicious and dangerous illness, Trump said Tuesday, joined only by his press secretary and a dozen reporters in the briefing room. Some areas of our country are doing well, and others are doing less well. Actually, really, none of it's doing well. Trump claims that his administration will stop at nothing to save lives and shield the vulnerable, which is so important. He added, and you're so full of shit. Rather than limiting his engagement on coronavirus to boost the time he spent on more politically expedient topics, Trump and his aides are now expected to refocus his attention to the global pandemic and the next economic relief package currently underway on Capitol Hill. So we'll be doing these quite often. We're going to keep you abreast of all this, and we'll talk about some of the other topics like our economy, which is doing well, which it's not. Trump said at the conclusion of his appearance on Tuesday. Ahead of the news conference, a second administration official said that the fake president was likely to make weekly appearances in the briefing room of Rose Garden to update the public on the pandemic, the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, and other efforts to reboot the economy and reopen educational and child care facilities. The expected increase in Trump's official appearances is not without risk. The White House aides and Trump's campaign team put an end to his daily coronavirus updates earlier this spring after they basically proved to be nothing more than rambling news conferences replete with erroneous healthcare claims, with the health claims misleading, like lies, like lying statements about testing and therapy treatments, along with backbiting insults toward governors who implemented strict stay-at-home orders, criticized the administration's response, or in the unusual case of Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp, reopened non-essential industries too quickly. Multiple polls conducted in late April near the end of Trump's briefing run found growing levels of distrust in the fake president as a reliable source of information on the pandemic, meaning people don't believe him at all, and I don't either. Some White House allies urged Trump ahead of his Tuesday appearance to employ a different format this time around, one where he avoids skirmishes with reporters, shows empathy, which is hard to do for him because he doesn't show any at all, and provide a clear example of how his administration is dealing with the devastating public health crisis. Talk personally, show you care. Technically, it would be hard for him to show that he cares because he doesn't give a shit about anyone. Tweeted Ari Fleischer, press secretary to President George W. Bush, adding that the resurrected ravens are a mistake for the incumbent Republican fake president. Whether Trump will continue to heed the advice of Fleischer or others in his orbit remains unclear. The fake president has repeatedly veered back into his undisciplined approaches, just as he did in March, even after winning a moment of praise for a more somber tone about the crisis. During an Oval Office photo op on Monday, he cast a string of briefings he participated in earlier this year as a very successful, despite their overlap with steep declines in both his approval rating and voter confidence in his handling of the coronavirus. He claims that he was doing them and that we had a lot of people watching. Technically, no, you didn't. At the time, many of the administration's allies worried that Trump was overexposing himself to voters, recognizing their boss's proclivity for exaggerated statements and hated exchanges with the press. The briefings left several White House officials on edge, wondering which comment or critique would generate the next news cycle and whether it would further impair his bid for a second term. Some of the briefings surpassed 2 hours in future contradicting information from the fake president and health officials. When Trump took the podium on Tuesday, it was clear aides had persuaded him to strike a different tone. The fake president, who has struggled to define his 2020 opponent or outline a convincing message for re-election, veered off track by only once to address a question about the recent arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell, an associate of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, who died by suicide while in federal custody last summer. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach, Cheeto said. The brief response was a reminder of the risks associated with Trump's return to the briefing room, and where his previous willingness to participate in hour-long grillings generated unflattering news cycles for his administration. The fake president took 16 questions on Tuesday and was in and out of the cramped room in less than half an hour, a development that one of the administration officials described as a step in the right direction. Not really. Now, if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Ryan Van Wyk, and then also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And I'll see you then.